She kissed her father goodnight before vanishing into a nightmare he never saw coming. That was 4 months ago. Now, 3 more children had disappeared from Ashford Heights, a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Chicago where white picket fences hid darker truths than anyone dared to admit. The kind of place where people waved at strangers and left their doors unlocked. Until they didn't. Detective Sarah Chen stood in the rain outside Lincoln Elementary, watching K-9 units circle the empty playground for the 3rd time this week. The German shepherds moved in careful patterns, their handlers watching for any sign of recognition, any hint of a scent trail. But the dogs found nothing. No scent. No trail. No clue. It was as if the children had been erased from existence, plucked from reality by invisible hands that left no fingerprints, no evidence, no hope. Behind her, Sheriff Tom Brennan rubbed his temples, his face carved with exhaustion and mounting dread. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes like bruises. He'd stopped sleeping 3 weeks ago, stopped eating regularly 2 weeks ago, stopped believing they'd find these kids alive about 5 days ago. He could feel his career slipping through his fingers like water. Each press conference another nail in his professional coffin. 4 children. 4 families destroyed. 4 sets of parents whose eyes accused him every time he walked into a room. And he had absolutely nothing. The first 2 had vanished in January, Emma Rodriguez, 10, and Marcus Webb, 9. Both from broken homes. Both quiet kids who kept to themselves. The kind of children who moved through the world like ghosts even before they disappeared. The community had mourned, but there'd been whispers. Maybe they ran away. Maybe the parents weren't telling the whole story. You know how those families are. Then Chloe Patterson disappeared 3 weeks ago. That's when the whispers turned to screams. The town hall meetings became war zones. Parents stood up and called the sheriff incompetent, their voices raw with fear and fury. Accusations flew like bullets ricocheting off walls. Someone threw a coffee cup. Someone else had to be escorted out by deputies. The local news picked up the story, then the regional stations. By week 2, national media had descended on Ashford Heights like vultures, their cameras capturing every tear, every angry outburst, every moment of Brennan's crumbling authority. You're supposed to protect our children. A mother's voice cracked with rage during the last community meeting, her face flushed red, spit flying from her lips. 4 kids are gone, and you have nothing? What the hell are you people doing? My daughter is terrified to walk to school. We all are. And you stand there with your badges and your guns and you tell us you're doing everything you can. She laughed, a bitter sound. That's not good enough. You're not good enough. The crowd erupted. Other parents joined in, their voices creating a chorus of condemnation. Brennan had stood at the podium, feeling smaller and smaller, his prepared statement crumbling in his hands. What could he say? That they were working around the clock? That they'd called in the FBI? That every lead had gone cold? The CCTV cameras near the last known locations had been destroyed, smashed with rocks or spray-painted black. No witnesses came forward despite public pleas. No evidence materialized despite exhaustive searches. No leads developed despite following every possible angle. Brennan's phone rang constantly. The mayor, the city council, the governor's office. Everyone wanted answers he didn't have. His deputies started looking at him differently, their respect giving way to doubt. His wife stopped asking about his day, the silence at home somehow worse than the accusations at work. And then, a week ago, the nightmare went nuclear. Sofia Castellano disappeared. 11 years old. Long dark hair. Bright eyes that seemed older than they should be. Daughter of Vincent Castellano, real estate tycoon, political donor, and a man whose power extended into corners of Chicago most people didn't know existed and wouldn't want to explore if they did. She'd been staying with her grandmother in Ashford Heights for summer break, a quiet retreat from the city's chaos. 7 days into her visit, she walked to the corner store for candy and never came home. Her grandmother, Elena Castellano, called 911 at 6:47 p.m. By 7 p.m., every cop in the county was searching. By 8 p.m., Vincent Castellano was on a helicopter from Chicago. By 9 p.m., Brennan knew his career was over. Vincent Castellano didn't grieve quietly. He arrived in Ashford Heights with a convoy of black SUVs, men in expensive suits flanking him like soldiers. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury, his movements precise and predatory. The sheriff's department became his war room within an hour. Brennan watched, helpless, as this man, this force of nature, tore through every protocol, every excuse, every failure with surgical precision. 4 children, Vincent said, his voice cold and precise as a scalpel, each word dropping like ice into water. 4 children have vanished in your town, Sheriff. My daughter is one of them. And you're going to stand there and tell me you have nothing? No suspects. No evidence. No fucking clue how this happened. Brennan opened his mouth, closed it. His throat felt tight. What could he say that wouldn't sound like an excuse? Vincent leaned forward across the conference table, his hands flat on the surface, his eyes boring into Brennan's skull. Do you have children, Sheriff? Yes, sir. 2 daughters. Then you understand. Vincent's jaw clenched. You understand what it feels like to imagine your child scared. Alone. Calling for you and you can't hear her. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I'm giving you 48 hours. If you don't find my daughter, I'm making a phone call. And when I do, you'll wish you'd never pinned that badge to your chest. Do we understand each other? Brennan nodded, his mouth dry. 24 hours later, with no new developments, Vincent made the call. I need Agent Carter. She arrived on a Tuesday morning when the sky was the color of old bruises, heavy clouds pressing down on the town like a weight. Isabella Carter stepped out of a sleek black sedan in front of the sheriff's office, and Brennan felt the ground shift beneath him. She was young, late 20s, maybe, with sharp features, olive skin, and dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore dark jeans, a fitted black t-shirt under a leather jacket, and moved with the kind of economy that came from years of military training. Every movement was purposeful, nothing wasted, but it was her eyes that made Brennan's stomach tighten. They were dark, almost black, and they seemed to catalog everything in a single glance: exits, threats, weaknesses, opportunities. The eyes of someone who'd seen things most people couldn't imagine and done things most people wouldn't survive. Vincent met her at the door of his makeshift command center in the Ashford Heights Country Club, a sprawling building he'd essentially taken over. She didn't shake his hand, didn't smile, just looked at him with those unreadable eyes. 5 million, she said flatly, her voice carrying the faintest trace of a southern accent. Half now. Half when I find your daughter. Vincent studied her for a long moment. Most people couldn't hold his gaze. Powerful men, senators, mob bosses, they all eventually looked away. She didn't blink. You're that confident? I don't take jobs I can't finish, Mr. Castellano. And if you don't find her, then you don't pay the second half. But that won't happen. Vincent's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. He slid a tablet across the table. 2.5 million has been transferred to your account. Verify it. She picked up the tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. After 30 seconds, she nodded once. Then we have a deal. My daughter is 11 years old. She's smart, kind, and she deserves better than what I've given her. Vincent's voice cracked slightly. Bring her home. I will. When she walked into the sheriff's office an hour later, Brennan couldn't hide his skepticism. She looked like she should be in a college classroom or a yoga studio, not hunting kidnappers in a town where 4 children had vanished without a trace. You're Agent Carter. That's right. Her voice was neutral, professional. With all due respect, Miss Carter, I'm not sure what Mr. Castellano told you, but this case is. You have a computer. Brennan blinked. What? A computer. Do you have one? He gestured to his desk, confused. She walked over with that same efficient movement, sat down, typed for 30 seconds, and turned the monitor toward him. Brennan's face went pale. His hand reached out to steady himself against the desk. Classified personnel file. Name, Isabella Marie Carter. Former rank, Captain, United States Marine Corps. IQ, 145. Specializations, counterintelligence, tactical operations, psychological profiling, high-value target acquisition. Commendations, Navy Cross, Silver Star, Purple Heart, X2, Bronze Star with Valor. Additional training, MI6 Deep Cover Operations, Advanced Sniper School, Honor Graduate, SEER Level C, Counterterrorism. Nickname, Angel of Death. Status, Honorably Discharged. Current occupation, Private Military Contractor. The file went on for pages. Missions in Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, Eastern Europe. Asset retrieval. High-value target elimination. Undercover work so classified even the summaries were redacted. Her marksmanship scores were perfect. Her psych evaluations described her as exceptionally stable under extreme stress and capable of making critical decisions with limited information. There were photos. Carter in dress blues receiving a medal from a general. Carter in tactical gear, face painted, rifle in hand. Carter standing over a target at 1,200 meters, the kill shot marked with clinical precision. Jesus Christ, Brennan whispered. Carter closed the laptop. Now that we understand each other, Sheriff, let's get to work. She listened to Brennan's briefing without interrupting. 4 children. No evidence. Destroyed cameras. Dead ends. Desperate parents. Media circus. Political pressure. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled under her chin. You've been investigating the wrong thing. Excuse me. You're focused on the how. How were they taken? How did the kidnapper avoid cameras? How did no one see anything? She shook her head. You should be asking why these specific children. Brennan frowned. They are all different ages, different schools, different neighborhoods. Exactly. So what connects them? Carter pulled out her phone and pulled up the files Vincent had provided, her eyes scanning quickly. Emma Rodriguez. Parents divorced when she was 6, father incarcerated for aggravated assault, mother works double shifts at a meat processing plant. Marcus Webb. Lives with his grandmother in subsidized housing. Mother is a chronic addict, father unknown. Chloe Patterson. Her father was arrested 2 years ago for domestic violence, currently out on probation. Sophia Castellano. She paused, her eyes lifting to meet Brennan's. Daughter of one of the most powerful men in Chicago, sent away to her grandmother's house for the summer while her father works. So these aren't random targets, Sheriff. Whoever took them chose children who were lonely, depressed, neglected. Children who felt invisible to the people who were supposed to love them. She looked up at him, her expression hard. You're not looking for a predator. You're looking for someone who thinks they're a savior. Carter worked fast and methodically, like a surgeon making incisions. She interviewed the families, but unlike the police, she didn't ask about the day of the disappearance. She asked about the weeks before, the months before. She dug into school records, therapy sessions, social media accounts that most adults didn't even know existed. What she found made Brennan physically ill. Emma Rodriguez's mother, Maria, had been investigated twice by Child Protective Services. Neighbors reported hearing screaming late at night. Medical records showed bruises on Emma's arms consistent with grabbing, her ribs showing signs of old fractures that had healed wrong. Maria worked 16-hour days at the plant, coming home exhausted and angry, taking out her frustrations on a daughter she'd never wanted. She was an accident, Maria said during the interview, her voice flat. I kept her because her father wanted a kid. Then he went to prison and left me with nothing. Marcus Webb's Instagram was a graveyard of deleted posts that Carter recovered with forensic software. Lonely midnight thoughts, cries for help that no one answered. Is anyone out there? One post read, timestamp 2:37 a.m. I feel like I'm screaming and nobody hears me. Another, Grandma does her best but she's tired. I don't want to be a burden anymore. His grandmother, sweet and well-meaning, was 78 years old and barely able to care for herself, let alone a 9-year-old boy with trauma. Chloe Patterson's diary, recovered from her room with her mother's permission, detailed years of watching her father hurt her mother. The entries were heartbreaking, written in careful handwriting that got messier as the violence escalated. Daddy hit Mommy again tonight. She says he didn't mean it. But I saw his face. He meant it. And later, sometimes I wish I could just disappear. Would they even notice? And then there was Sophia. Carter found her TikTok account, private, only visible to friends, most of whom didn't know her in real life. The videos were heartbreaking. An 11-year-old girl talking to the camera in whispers while her father worked late downstairs in his home office, the light from her phone casting shadows across her young face. He doesn't even know I'm here, she said in one video, her voice small. He sends me to Grandma's every summer like I'm a package he can mail away. Mom used to make him spend time with me, but she's gone now. She died 2 years ago and I think part of him died too. Sometimes I think he wishes I died instead of her. At least then he wouldn't have to pretend to care. In another video, filmed late at night, her eyes red from crying. I read this article that said sometimes people only notice you when you're gone. Like, you have to disappear for people to realize you mattered. Maybe that's what it takes. Maybe I have to vanish before Daddy remembers I exist. Carter showed the videos to Vincent in his penthouse suite overlooking the city. The man's face crumbled like paper in fire. I didn't know she felt this way. When's the last time you spent a day with her? Just the two of you. Carter's voice wasn't accusatory, just direct. Vincent's silence stretched. His hands shook slightly as he set down his glass of scotch. Her birthday was in April. I sent her a gift card and a text. I had meetings all day. His voice broke. Before that, Christmas, maybe? No, I was in Dubai for Christmas. I sent her presents. Presents aren't presents, Mr. Castellano. I know. Tears streamed down his face, this powerful man reduced to rubble. After Sarah died, my wife, I couldn't look at Sophia without seeing her mother. Same eyes. Same smile. Every time I saw her, I felt the grief all over again. So I buried myself in work. Sent her to boarding school. Summer with her grandmother. I told myself I was giving her space to grieve. But really? He covered his face with his hands. Really? I was just running away. You sent her away because it was easier than dealing with your grief, Carter said quietly. She thinks you don't love her. I do love her, Vincent whispered, his voice breaking completely. She's everything to me. She's all I have left of Sarah. Then pray I find her so you can tell her that. Carter went back to basics, working the case like she'd worked missions overseas, methodically, emotionally detached, focused on data and patterns rather than fear. She visited the corner store where Sophia was last seen. The owner, a tired Pakistani man named Rashid, said the cameras had been broken for weeks, budget cuts. But Carter noticed something the police hadn't. Across the street, an old woman sat on her porch, the same spot she probably sat every day, a fixture of the neighborhood. Carter crossed the street. My name is Isabella Carter. I'm investigating the missing children. The woman looked up from her knitting, her eyes sharp despite her age. You're not a cop. No, I'm something different. Good. The cops are useless. She set down her knitting. What do you want to know? You see everything from up there, don't you? Carter gestured to the porch's elevated position. The woman nodded slowly. I do. Been sitting here 30 years. I know every soul in this neighborhood. Did you see Sophia Castellano? The pretty girl with dark hair. Yes. She came for candy. Pretty thing. Polite. She said thank you when Rashid gave her the bag. The woman's eyes grew distant. Then she got in a car. Brennan, who'd accompanied Carter, stepped forward. Someone took her. No, the woman said carefully. She got in willingly. A woman was driving. Older. Kind face. She talked to the girl for a minute through the window. Then the girl smiled and got in. Natural as anything. Carter's jaw tightened. What kind of car? Blue sedan. Old model, maybe 15 years. Had a bumper sticker. Something about angels watching over children. I remember because it seemed sweet. Carter took detailed notes, asking about every detail the woman could remember. Make, model, approximate year, dents, rust patterns, license plate fragments. They found more witnesses once Carter started asking the right questions. A teacher at Marcus's school remembered seeing him talking to a woman outside the fence during recess. She seemed nice, like somebody's grandmother. He was smiling, which was unusual for Marcus. He hardly ever smiled. A neighbor saw Emma Rodriguez getting into a car. I thought it was her aunt or something. The woman had this gentle way about her. She wasn't forcing the girl. Emma got in on her own. No force. No violence. No screaming. These children had gone willingly. Carter ran the description through databases. Then she did something Brennan would never have thought of. She checked psychiatric hospitals in a 200-mile radius for recent escapes or early releases. It took 6 hours of calls, but she found it. Bingo. Janet Mitchell, 54 years old. Escaped from Pinewood Psychiatric Hospital 6 months ago during a fire drill. Diagnosed with severe delusional disorder following the death of her son, Michael, in a car accident 3 years prior. According to her file, Janet believed she could save children from bad homes. She'd been institutionalized after trying to take a neighbor's child, claiming she was rescuing them from neglect. Her delusion had a name, Savior Complex with Maternal Transference. She genuinely believed she was helping. Carter pulled up Janet's last known address, a small property left to her by her parents. 40 acres. Old farmhouse. Deep in the woods outside Ashford Heights, isolated and perfect for hiding. That's it, Carter said, her finger tapping the map. That's where they are. Brennan felt hope surge for the first time in months. How can you be sure? Because everything fits. Remote location. History of maternal delusion. Escape timeframe matches the first disappearance. And this. She pulled up Janet's hospital records. She worked as a school counselor before her breakdown. She knows how to talk to kids. How to gain their trust. How to identify the vulnerable ones. Jesus. Get your tactical team ready, Sheriff. We move at dawn. They moved at first light, when the mist still clung to the ground like ghosts. Carter led the tactical team through the woods, moving in absolute silence, hand signals coordinating movement. Brennan followed, his heart hammering so hard he thought everyone could hear it. The farmhouse appeared through the trees, small, run down, paint peeling, but with lights on inside and smoke coming from the chimney. Someone was home. Carter raised her fist. Everyone stopped, frozen in position. She pulled out binoculars and scanned the windows. She could see movement through a window. Children. Playing. Her heart rate didn't increase. This was what she did. This was who she was. She signaled the team. They moved into position, surrounding the house with practiced efficiency. Carter approached the front door, weapon drawn but lowered, her movements fluid and controlled. She didn't knock. She didn't announce. She tested the door, unlocked, and pushed it open with 2 fingers. They breached fast and clean, spreading through the house like water. Janet Mitchell stood in the kitchen, humming to herself, making sandwiches with careful attention. She wore a floral apron and had flour on her hands. When she saw the guns, the tactical gear, the grim faces, she smiled. It was the smile that made Brennan's skin crawl. Peaceful. Content. You're here for the children. Her voice was soft, grandmotherly. Where are they? Carter demanded, weapon-trained center mass. Safe. I saved them. Janet's eyes shone with absolute conviction. They were suffering, and I gave them a home. I gave them love. They needed me. They found 3 children in the living room, Emma, Marcus, and Sophia. They were clean, fed, dressed in comfortable clothes, playing board games at a table. When they saw the officers with guns, they looked confused. Scared. Not of Janet. Of the rescuers. We're here to take you home, Brennan said gently, holstering his weapon, trying to look non-threatening. Emma started crying. Please don't make me go back. Please. She's nice to me. She doesn't hit me. Marcus clutched a stuffed bear. I don't want to go back to Grandma's. She doesn't remember my name sometimes. Sophia just stared, her eyes hollow. Where's Chloe? Carter asked Janet, her voice sharp. The woman's face fell. In the back room. She wanted to leave. She didn't understand. I couldn't let her. They found Chloe locked in a small bedroom, curled in the corner, terrified. She'd been there for 3 days with minimal food and water, punishment for trying to escape. But the worst discovery came when Carter, following procedure, cleared the rest of the house. She opened the basement freezer. Inside, perfectly preserved in the cold, was the body of a young boy, maybe 8 years old, dressed in clean clothes, positioned carefully like he was sleeping. His face was peaceful. That's Michael, Janet said from behind them, her voice soft and fond, like she was introducing a friend. My son. He died 3 years ago, but I couldn't let him go. He's still with me. He's always with me. Carter felt her stomach turn, but her face remained impassive. She'd seen worse in war zones. This was sad, tragic, but it was over now. Janet Mitchell, you're under arrest. Janet Mitchell was arrested without incident. She didn't resist, didn't fight. She asked only one thing. Can I say goodbye to the children? They didn't let her. Psychiatric evaluation confirmed she was severely delusional, living in a fantasy where she was rescuing children from abusive homes and her dead son was still alive, waiting for her in the basement. The doctors said she genuinely believed she was helping, that in her fractured mind, she was a hero. The children were returned to their families. Medical exams showed they hadn't been physically harmed. Janet had fed them, clothed them, let them play. She'd been, in her twisted way, kind. But the psychological damage would take years to unpack. All except Sophia remained quiet through the whole process. Vincent Castellano sat in the hospital room where his daughter was being evaluated, watching her through the observation glass. She sat on the examination table, legs swinging, staring at nothing. Carter stood beside him. She's in shock. It'll take time. She asked the doctor why I sent her away, Vincent said quietly, his voice raw. She asked if I was happier without her. Vincent's eyes filled with tears. After my wife died, I buried myself in work. It was easier than facing the grief. Easier than looking at Sophia and seeing Sarah's eyes staring back at me. He wiped his face roughly. I thought I was protecting her. I didn't realize I was breaking her. You get a second chance, Mr. Castellano. Not everyone does. When Sophia was medically cleared, Vincent went in alone. Carter watched through the glass as he sat beside his daughter and took her small hand in his large ones. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice cracking like breaking ice. I've been a terrible father. The worst. I sent you away because I was afraid. But you're the most important thing in my life, Sophia. You're all I have left of your mother, and you're so much more than that. You're brilliant and kind and brave, and I've missed everything. If I lost you..." He couldn't finish. "There's no coming back from that. Not for me." Sophia looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. "You always seemed like you didn't want me around." "I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making that up to you." He squeezed her hand. "We're going to Paris next month. Just you and me. And then London. And Tokyo. And anywhere else you want to go. Ice cream every day. Late-night movies. Prom dress shopping even though you're only 11. He smiled through his tears. "I want to know you, baby. Really know you. Your favorite color, your favorite food, what makes you laugh, what scares you, everything. Will you give me that chance?" Sophia hesitated for a long moment. Then she whispered, "Do you really mean it?" "I swear on your mother's memory. I swear on everything I am." Sophia nodded slowly, tears finally falling. "Okay, Daddy." Vincent pulled her into his arms and held on like she might disappear again if he let go. 1 week later, Carter stood in the sheriff's office, packing her gear into a black duffel bag. Brennan approached, looking 10 years younger than he had when they'd met. The dark circles were fading. He was sleeping again. "I don't know how to thank you. The town is safe. The kids are home. That's enough. You saved my career. The mayor's talking about giving me a commendation. I saved lives, Sheriff. Your career is your problem." But she softened slightly. "For what it's worth, you care about this town. You just needed to look deeper. Sometimes the real crime isn't the kidnapping. It's what happened before that made a child feel like they needed to be saved." Brennan nodded slowly. "What happens to Janet?" "Psychiatric facility. Maximum security. She'll never see the outside again." "And the kids?" "Emma's mother is in court-mandated rehab and parenting classes. Marcus's grandmother got him into therapy and they've connected him with a big brother mentor. Chloe's father violated probation and is back in prison. Her mother is getting help. And Sophia?" Carter allowed a small smile. "Sophia's father is actually showing up." Her phone buzzed. The second payment, $2.5 million, had cleared. Carter shouldered her bag. "Take care of this town, Sheriff. It needs you." "Where will you go?" "Wherever I'm needed next." She walked out into the morning sun, got in her car, and drove away without looking back. Behind her, Ashford Heights began to heal. Parents held their children tighter. The community demanded better resources for troubled families. The school hired additional counselors. Emma's mother, Maria, broke down crying in a therapy session and finally admitted she needed help. Marcus's grandmother enrolled in senior support services and got assistance caring for her grandson. Chloe's mother filed for divorce and moved to a women's shelter with resources for domestic violence survivors. And in his penthouse in Chicago, Vincent Castellano sat with his daughter, watching The Princess Bride, her favorite movie that he'd never seen, for the first time in 3 years. "I love you," he whispered into her hair as Wesley rolled down the hill. "I love you too, Daddy," she whispered back, curled against his side like she used to when she was small. He'd already cancelled 3 weeks of meetings. Their flights to Paris were booked. He'd hired a therapist specializing in childhood trauma. He'd enrolled in a parenting class for grieving fathers. He was, for the first time since Sarah died, actually trying. Outside, the city lights flickered like stars, and somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. Vincent held his daughter closer. Some things, once lost, can never be recovered. Time lost with a child. Innocence stolen. Trust broken. But some things, if you're lucky, if you fight hard enough, if you're willing to change, come home. And when they do, you hold on. You never let go again. You never take another moment for granted. Because somewhere in the woods of Ashford Heights, in a basement freezer, A mother's delusion had preserved her son forever. But preservation isn't love. Love is messy, imperfect, present. Love shows up. And Vincent Castellano, who'd built an empire but almost lost what mattered most, finally understood that. As Sophia fell asleep in his arms, he made a silent promise to Sarah's memory. "I'll do better. I swear. I'll be the father she deserves." The movie played on. And outside, the world kept turning. But inside that penthouse, time stood still for just a moment. A father and daughter. Together. Finally. Home.